and welcome to David Joshua Ford Live. This is episode 94, and on today's show, we're going to take a look at ScreenDeck, which is a brand new way of controlling Companion. And as part of that, I also want to take a look more broader because as the years go on, there's so many more ways to control Companion in terms of locally close to your computer or also remotely as well. So we'll start off with looking at ScreenDeck, but otherwise we will sort of take a look at all the different surfaces that we have available. Just give me a second, I gotta turn off something. All right, just realized I had my fan still running there in the background. If you're new to the channel, we talk about live streaming, video production, all that kind of stuff. So drop me a chat and it'd be great to know where you're joining from, and also if you have any questions as we go along. But to kick off today, I wanted to take a look at ScreenDeck, which is a new virtual control interface for Companion. And as I mentioned, as the years go on, there's more and more ways of controlling Companion. If you're not familiar with Companion, it's basically an application that runs on a computer, be it your local computer, or you could have that remotely as more of a server. And then that controls a whole bunch of equipment, and particularly for live production and TV stations and broadcasting, live streaming, all that kind of stuff, cameras, lights, encoders, switches, all that kind of stuff. Everything that I do here in the studio is basically sort of running via Companion, and then there's various methods of controlling that we'll take a look at today. I've got a bunch of hardware from the ScreenDeck Studio to the regular ScreenDecks, iPads, remotes, pedals, and the phone. But what I want to look at is ScreenDeck, which was created by Joseph Adams, who's done so much amazing work on Companion. So let's take a look. The link is in the description if you want to download that and get going. I'm going to hit this one. So if you download that, we're up to version 1.2 as the point of going live here. And there is different versions. I've got the macOS Silicon one because that is what I'm using on a M4 Mac as the server. But if you're running Windows and all that kind of stuff, you can get that as well. Basically, download your version of it, put it in the applications folder, and then you can open it up and it will look like this little application down here. And it's also, let me see, what was I gonna say? It's version 1.2, yeah. I'm just gonna click this one, just making sure I'm not having any other things that pop up. So then it's basically like a mini ScreenDeck that is on your control surface here on the computer. And the nice thing about it is that you can set it so it floats across the top of your display. So if you were doing other things over here on a computer, you could always have access to these buttons, and there's a transparency there so you can sort of see behind it. And it's very customizable as well. So the way that I'm running my system these days is I've moved Companion off this computer and into the rack in an M4 Mac Mini Pro. And so that is what's running computer. And so this computer that you're looking at here, which has the ScreenDeck on it, is not actually running the software locally. It's connecting across my local network to pull up what you would otherwise see on something like the ScreenDeck here is going to be the same sort of panel. So once you've opened up ScreenDeck, it'll put a little application up here, and it'll show you what you're connected to. And you can either disable button presses, quit the application, or you can go to settings. If you do close it down, so there's a little X here, and something I'd love to see in an update would be if you click back on ScreenDeck for it to, so I just clicked there and nothing happened, which might be a user preference, but you've got to go show keypad, and then it will come back into view. But let's go into, where are we? Wrong screen. Into settings, and we can take a look at it. It's pretty simple. Not that much going on here. Let me just hide this so we can make it a little prettier and more simple. Okay, so I'm basically putting in my companion IP. Like I mentioned, I'm not actually running that on this computer, so this is the address of my computer on the other network, but if I had it on my computer, I could just put in a local address, which would be 127.0.0.1. Companion port, you can leave that as it is. And then we're basically saying how many keys do we want and how many rows per key, which will set the layout of this. A little bit different to the way that Companion lays it out in terms of the number of rows and columns. This is talking about total number of keys, and then you get the columns by the number of rows. So I've just gone for a regular ScreenDeck XL size here, just because that sort of the profile that I have and I use on my desk all the time is matching that. So it means I can sort of navigate around all of the different things that I might want to control. Okay, so then you can have bitmap, button size, and actually I haven't played with that one yet. I wonder if we could make that like, I don't know if 500 would be too much, but we could save settings. Is that too big? Yeah, that's really big. It's going on to my other screen here, and as you can, that's way too big. So let's resize that. I just say 500 because that's sort of the pixel size that I've been working with when I am building profiles. But let's go back to settings, and maybe 200. We'll try that one. Okay, that's still pretty big. I think you can see on this screen. I'll come back to here. So we probably don't need it that big, but it is nice being able to sort of adjust how big you want that. And you could also use this as a sort of heads-up display on if you wanted to have a monitor somewhere. So if you think about running Companion in a studio where you might want to put up some stats. Like for example, here I can see on this button I've got that I'm 8 minutes into my live stream here, and I am recording. So that kind of feedback is useful. You might want to put that up in the studio and just have all sorts of different things connected there. Let's make this one a bit smaller. Just go back to settings. Oh, now that's too big. And I'm going to go back to 72. And then the option is always on top and movable window. So if you unselect movable window, you will have it like this, and you can't drag it around. It'll just be stuck there. So it's quite nice being able to move it, but good having that option. All right, so that's basically how that runs on the computer. So you can imagine you might want to use this to control something, but you also might want to use it to have a sort of heads-up display, like I was saying before. So if you're doing some work on the computer, you can see an outline of things. So let's go try a different way of doing this. And I'm going to go back to settings, and maybe I'll just have total keys. I just want 4 keys, and I'm going to have 1 key per row. Save settings. And now you can see I've got this little bar down here that I might want to just keep some stats in terms of what I'm recording with. Now on my Companion, I have a clock page, which is sort of my heads up display. And so this is where I could position where this is targeting it to sort of show me things that I always want. So just say I always want to know actually I was building one here, which was a bit bigger. So that was 3x4. So maybe we'll change that to that. Let's go settings. So that was 12. And we can make it 3 per row, save settings. Okay. This is still sort of pointing towards my home page. So this is how we would get it to a different page. So this is page 96. In your surfaces page, I'm starting to get a lot of them. You would go to, it's going to show up here somewhere. Down here. Is it that one? No, that's the ScreenDeck Studio. I'm getting to those ones in a sec. ScreenDeck, here we go. All right, so you'll see that it's connected and it has shown up with a unique ID there. and it has the IP address of my computer. So this is actually pointing back to my computer on the network is 7.16, and then this is now a surface that we can control. And so I'm going to point it to clock. So I had clock, and you see that'll update already. And then I can just offset where I want it in the grid. So I think I had like that, and vertical offset, that should be fine. So that's an example of a way in which you could set up a heads-up display. It's not quite set up. I normally have like the time of day of the clock here, and then the sort of the countdown to live, but it's a bit out of whack because I started a bit late today. Partly because I was going to show you ScreenDeck, and then I was like, man, there are so many ways to control Companion, and I was trying to pull out all the different bits of hardware that I've got around the place to show you that, and other ways of controlling it. So hopefully that should give you a bit of an idea of just a neat way. It's, you know, it's free, easy to use, very versatile. You can use it locally, or you can use it across your network. So definitely check out that. Let's have a quick check-in here. We've got Lewis joining from Portugal. Great to have you here. I spent last summer in Portugal, had a really great time there in Lisbon and down south. So fond memories of Portugal. And we got Nico from the Netherlands. Thank you for joining, and thanks for all that you do for the community. I know you're often sort of building things and experimenting and sort of creating new ways of using Companion. So that's really cool. All right, so let's take a look now at part 2, which is local connections and USB hardware. So we're talking about controlling Companion from your local computer. I was trying to work out how to sort of break down all the different ways of controlling Companion, because there's so many and they're quite diverse. So we're going to start with this section here, talking sort of locally, and then the next section will be talking more remotely, because what I showed you with ScreenDeck could be considered sort of local or sort of remotely, but we'll just sort of work our way through them. I would say the first way of controlling Companion is obviously the good old-fashioned Stream Deck. So that's this kind of thing, and that's basically a Stream Deck plugged via USB into the just got to get out of this one, close this one down, and we're going to go into surfaces, and you'll see, if I can find it, what am I looking for? I'm looking for Surface 1, I think. No, sorry, I'm looking for, I've changed the way I've set this up now. So this is actually a satellite. This is where it gets confusing, because even though I feel like I'm using this locally, this is remotely. So I will come back to this, but basically you'd plug in USB, it would show up here in Surfaces, as long as you had under Settings enabled direct connection to Stream Decks. So that needs to be enabled, and what that is doing is basically disconnecting Elgato's Stream Deck. So if you remember the Elgato Stream Deck software, which I think I can run, it might get a little confusing. Let's live on the edge. Okay, so I'm still running it over directly. Let me just remind me later. So you can, if you go into settings in Elgato, you can go to plugins, and you'll have this Companion plugin here from the marketplace. If you add that in, scroll down the bottom, and there'll be like Companion buttons that you can drag in, and then these buttons will speak back to the Companion installation if you have that option disabled. Remember, we were talking about this one. So if I disable this direct connection to Stream Decks, that means that you got two applications, and we're talking about which one is the host controller. And so at the moment with that enabled, it's going to be disabling Elgato and running it through Companion. But if you uncheck that, then it'll create a plugin, like a virtual surface within Companion, and then Elgato will speak to that plugin in Companion. So that's some of the things that have changed there over the years. I've done videos on that before, and it's sort of since changed a little bit. So that's one way of doing it. Let me go to Elgato and just quit this so that we don't, where are we? ScreenDeck. Quit so we don't get confused on our decks. So we've got under surfaces in the settings, surfaces, watch for new USB devices. Just gonna close down our friend over here. Watch for new USB devices, watch for discoverable remote surfaces. We'll get to that in a second. They're usually on by default. There's also X keys, if you have that. X keys is gonna be this kind of thing. So this is another sort of surface that you can plug into Companion to control it, but it doesn't have the visual feedback. It's probably got better quality broadcast buttons, but I do like having the visual feedback on the screen. I think makes a huge difference to having something really, really useful. Let me come back to, where did my page go? X keys. All right, back to here. Also, you can have loop deck and razor, yeah. Which is this kind of thing. So these sort of surfaces, I think this sort of loop deck live, you can connect that now in Companion. So there's a lot of options here. And these ones has some rotaries there. I haven't tried this one. My reservation against this would be that these buttons are sort of verging towards the what do you call, like touch screen? Like it's got the dividing panel in it, but it's really a touch screen as opposed to an actual button. And I think one of the great things about the ScreenDeck is that there are specific buttons that you can kind of like brush your fingers across it, and you can find, you know, just by touch, by tactile means of where the button is, and you can, you know, hover over something without pressing it, which is where on this kind of thing, I think I'd be a little more concerned that it'd be more of like a macro pad than something you'd want to switch with. What else we got? Contour Shuttle. So the Contour Shuttle, I actually have one of these, and I don't use it in Companion. I use it with, I got this one. There's also a bigger one. These are really neat. If you don't have this one, go grab that one. I recommend it. I've got over here, if I can grab this one. Oops, what do I got here? It's plugged in at the back. I need to bring it around. Actually, there was another device I should have talked about. Contour Shuttle, you can set this up to be used with Companion, but I actually have it running through like teleprompter app software, and that's in the background. And so then I can use my little jog wheel to control my teleprompter, which is, let me see if I've got that. Do I have this one? So this is kind of, you know, so you can, the talking points of like local connections, that's what I'm using as I go through that. So you can use it directly, or you can use it with the other software. I recommend those. I think they're really neat. Back to this one. And VEC foot pedal, go in here, this kind of thing. I don't have the VEC one, which is this one, maybe a little bit cheaper. I've got the Elgato ScreenDeck pedal, which is more like $90. So we can take a look at that on the desk here. I was actually, before the stream started, I was trying to find it, and I'd like packed it away somewhere because I don't use it a whole lot. But basically, you've got 3 buttons. You've got, you know, this raised side, and then the center is slightly depressed, so that you can hopefully, with the shoe on, you know, find the buttons and not sort of get that messed up. But the way that you would set that up is basically the same as another surface. So now that I've got it plugged in, it will show up. I think it does. Something's running. Oh, I've got so many of them. Okay, I need to give this a name, pedal. Okay, so this will show up as ScreenDeck pedal. I'm used to all these running locally, but since I've gone to satellite, which we'll get in a bit, these are all running down here, and you can go to settings, and you can basically define where you want it to go. So it's a surface, and it has 3 buttons which would start at 0, 0 in a page. So let's go to a blank page. Page 64. Okay, so 64 is a blank page. I can just delete these buttons. I'm just going to make a button so we can test where it's going to land. Set the background color is going to be red. So this is black, but once we press this button, we are going to, it's going to go red for each of these buttons. And I'll just make a few more so we can see where they land. Okay, but this is 0, 0. Remember we had 0, 0 is where the grid starts from. Now it doesn't start from 1, 1, it starts from 0, 0. So you're gonna have up to sort of 0, 7 will be the end of a normal ScreenDeck XL. So I'm just gonna paste this one in here. Yeah, where are we? Copy and paste. Okay, so now I've got a couple of buttons here that will go red if we press them. And so I'm gonna go back to surfaces, and I'm gonna go to my pedal settings, and I'm gonna go, oh, I didn't do it, did I? 64, it was 64, I think. I'm gonna give it a name. So if you go to edit here, instead of page, I can call this pedal. And now you can see when I go to surfaces and under pedal, it's called pedal, but I could also type in pedal and find it. So it's great when you've got a ton of pages. And I'm just gonna leave it for 0, 0, but the idea here is that you could offset the 3 buttons that this is pressing. And let me see if I can show you this one maybe. Okay, so we'll go back to buttons. This is my pedal page. I think it's triggering the right one. So this should be the button number 2 if I press the center. Yeah, there we go. And this will be the left one. Very good. And that'll be the right one. Excellent. So you can see that these are the buttons that it's targeting, but you could also place that anywhere in a profile. Like you don't, you can choose which page you want it on, and it could just be the back end of some page that you don't use, and then you can add things into these buttons. So, and then in Companion, you can add in anything you want to do. So the way I normally set that up is I have under, let me just go to Emulator. So when I'm running a show, I have these buttons, and this is my sort of cue page that I'm working through. So start, end, and this execute button. And so if I go forwards and backwards, I can sort of jump to which is going to be the next cue that I execute if I press this button. And so what I'll do is line up the pedal to be those buttons. Let me just get it onto, I think I'm up to this one. So if I was to do that, then it doesn't really matter which page. We're going to go to, I don't want to press the wrong button. So let me see. If I go to run down, no, I'm jumping all around the place here. Okay, pedal, surfaces. Let's go to pedal. Okay, so if this was page 1, then the horizontal offset would be, I don't want to get this number wrong. What's that going to be? That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see if that works. So it should be pressing this one. Let me see. Yeah, okay, so I'm going backwards. And then you can see I'm going forwards. And if I press this end button here, then I would advance a cue. So this is the way that I run the pedal under the desk, which is basically if I wanted to advance a cue, I just have to be on this edge and I hit the next cue with my foot. And otherwise, this one would go back a cue if I wanted to do something, or the center one would skip a cue. I just find that keeping it simple is good, particularly if you're wearing shoes and you can get a little, trying to find the right the center one, I find it's easier to sort of mash the pedal a bit if you're wearing shoes. So the edge buttons are better for executing things because you can kind of find the edge. So that's the way that I sort of run the pedal. What else we got? Okay, so we're still on local connections. That was the pedal. And you can also run it with the keyboard. So the way that this runs is in an emulator. Let me go to here. So under Surfaces, you can add an emulator. I'm just gonna use one that I've already got, which is Emulator Surface 1, because I have too many surfaces already. You can set a startup page if you want it, or you can just say, use the last startup page. I'm just gonna use the last startup page. And row count, column count, horizontal offset, this is also the default stuff. If you want to rotate it, you can. But the main thing here is enabling support for Logitech R400, which is also 500, which I'll get to in a sec. So I realize I'm not showing you things that would be good to see. Under the surfaces here, enabling this support for Logitech. And that's it. So now when we go to Emulator Surface 1, if I click this open button, I now have an emulator, which is another way of controlling Companion that we're getting into. This is just a web browser. You'll notice the address here is 82, so that is the machine that's running Companion. So I've directed this web page to the Companion installation on the M4 Mac Mini, and then it's the port number 8000 that I'm using emulator, and then the emulator key. And so now I can jump around and sort of control any of these surfaces like I normally would, but I can also on the keyboard, let me see if I can move this one up. So just regular old keyboard, basically lines up with like 1 to 8, lines up with the top row of 1 to 8. And then the QWERTY and the ASDF and ZXCV, all that kind of stuff lines up. The quirk is that, like, it's sort of off kilt, but you can, if I go through here, as I'm basically like selecting different menus like that. And so the limitation here is that this web browser, this page has to be in the foreground for that to run. So it's not going to run in the background if you open up some other application. As long as that web browser is in the foreground of the computer and you're sort of pressing these buttons, then you can control it, which is handy in a pinch. But that actually leads me to another way of controlling it, which is the Logitech remotes. Now you can get the R500. Let me go to Logitech R500 is the one that they talk about in Companion, which is, I don't know if it's so for sale. Here it is. Okay, so there's this one, which I have bought before, and I don't like it because these buttons are very tight together. I much prefer the R500, which is this one, and it's cheaper. It's $40. So that is, that's what I have here, which is, let me see if I go, very simple. It's got a little USB that you can plug into the local machine if you want to connect it very easily, but it also does have Bluetooth in it, so you can connect it without that. But super simple to plug in, and then you basically have 2 buttons, forwards and backwards, and you have a little laser pointer, which is just kind of fun. I should probably use that more for demonstrating things. I think I need to replace this battery actually, because I think it's getting low. But this one I find just sits in the hand much better, and you can do a forward and backwards. So you've got basically 2 buttons. So if you remember before with my pedal, I basically have 1 button to advance my show cues, which can be this one. And so this is how we're going to set it up. Again, we'll go to close these pages down, all these ones, and we're going to go to, this is my test page here. So I've created a page called Remote, R500 Remote, and I've got, it basically presses the 2 and the 3 key. Remember we did, where's my thing gone? Here. So it's basically pressing 2 and 3 on the keyboard. Is the equivalent of like 3 would be forwards and 2 would be backwards. Let me get back to here. So again, I was doing this test of, we can paste these buttons in here and see what pops up. So if we have the surfaces and we go to R500, so this isn't the remote, this is just a surface. So I've just gone to add emulator and it's popped up a empty emulator. And I've come in here and called it R500 Logitech remote. And then from there, I can click on settings and I'll choose a page. So I've turned off use last page at startup because I want it to always hit page 68. And the current page is page 68. And then this is all default here, just row count is 4 and column count is 8. So it's just a regular ScreenDeck XL that we have in there. Haven't changed that. If you did want to offset it, this is where you could come in and move your horizontal offset. And so the way that I set this up is I have this button sort of lined up with the ScreenDeck pedal so that we have, got to carefully do this so I don't trigger something. Basically, to advance my show, I can either click the button for the next cue in the show, or I can press the right button to advance it, or the back button is the same as this one here. So that's how I've set those up to just give me different modes of control. It means that, you know, if I wanted to, which I should try and do at some point, do a show where it's like a little bit wider and I could just sort of control the show like that and sort of get out from behind the desk and use that. Maybe I'll try that sometime, see if I can run the whole show just off a clicker, because I really like that. Again, the downside is that you need to have this in the foreground. So let's go to Super Source, and we're going to go to Surfaces, Logitech Remote. I'm going to open this one up. So remember, this is page 68, which was our remote here. And we've set up some test buttons, which will turn red when we click them. And so if I click forward, you can see that button number 3 is the one that's triggered. And if I click back, then that's the one that's sort of triggering the back button. And so then from here, we could basically, those 2 buttons in Companion, we could assign anything that you want to it. And this is where the sky's the limit, because behind those buttons, you could put a command to play a video, or to advance a cue, or to turn off the lights. Or if you want to get really creative, you could have it so it's sort of more dynamic, and as you sort of step through cues, it changes to different pages. You know, it could get as complicated as you want, or as simple as you want, or it could just be sort of a forward and backwards button for PowerPoint, and you could send commands to PowerPoint or slides or something if you want to advance things that way. So that's the way to go around about that. Let's take a little question here. Like This Review says, can you control ScreenDeck with a regular keyboard as you can control an emulator? I don't think so, because it floats outside of that. I don't know how that would be in the foreground. Let me see. Let me go to over here. Okay, so if we go to, remember it turns up as a surface. So ScreenDeck Settings, no, it doesn't even have the, so normally these surfaces would have the option down here for like remote control. So it doesn't look like that actually has that. You can do like rotation and offset and that kind of stuff, but you can't control it because this is sort of floating, where are we? Show keypad. It's sort of floating outside of an app, I guess. It does exist within the, like if I select the Finder that way, but you know, it's always on top normally. I think if I also go settings, if I go turn off always on top and go save settings. Now I wonder if I tab back over, no, it's not showing. Show keypad, there's the keypad. If I click on another app, so I've clicked on Chrome, and then just say I want to see it again, when I tab back over, it doesn't appear. So some of that would be quite nice to, I don't know. I think if you're using it, you're probably going to have it always on. So always on top, movable window, save settings, and save settings, close that down, it opens it up. The other thing that you can have here is disable button presses. So, I mean, these buttons here, or some of them have some control behind it, like the live button is actually just copied and pasted, so that would turn off the whole live stream, so we don't want to do that. But if you're in that scenario, you can disable button presses, so you just get to see the buttons rather than them being accidentally pressed. So another nice feature there. What else we got? We've got the electric remote, other USB devices. Let me just finish off the USB devices. I know there's like a long list, but there's so many things you can do with Companion, which is under, and I haven't even had time to like experiment with all of these. Let me go to this one. So we did the foot pedal, the Blackmagic ATEM micro panel. This would just map to certain buttons. I don't know exactly where it lands, but usually with these surfaces, like maybe this one is like blank buttons here, I'm guessing. I would expect that this would be like the third row and in the first column for this button here. And so you'd have 10 buttons here that were sort of missing, and then these ones might do something. So I expect that's how it would be mapped to Companion's grid, but I haven't tested it. But you can actually plug this in and it will work, because there's a ton more things coming to Companion. The other one that looks really neat, and I kind of want to experiment with this or like try out the panel, 203 Systems Mistrix. It just looks fun. I remember looking this up a while back. I don't know, it's just like a whole lot of buttons. And they light up different ways, and this could be really, I'm curious to see with this panel what level of feedback there is in it. Like, I don't think that's a screen. I think they're just like LED lights, I think. So, I mean, there's a certain amount of control here of if you had different colors, that would give you a ton of feedback in there. But if anyone's played with this, let me know, because it looks really interesting. You know, if you have maybe videos, you know, or different sounds, or I don't know. There's just a lot of buttons there, which is always fun. More buttons, more fun. Okay, so that is all of the surfaces that we would plug in directly. I think we got that. Elgato software, we covered all of that. So let's go to part 3, and we're going to talk about remote connections and Companion satellite. So this is where we're talking about putting a little more distance between the Companion server and the operator. So this is something kind of where I have now in my rack, where I've taken Companion away from my computer and I've got it sitting in the rack, and it's now on 24/7. It also means that I can, when I'm at home, just dial in via the VPN, and then from my laptop at home, I can be accessing the studio here and running Companion, all that kind of stuff. So there's a ton more stuff that we can do with Companion satellite. If you are not familiar with Companion satellite, go to bitfocus.io and sign in. Let me just sign in here. And I'm going to get all my surfaces under control. And so under Bitfocus, under download, these are all the things that we can play with at the moment. Buttons is the new one, which is in sort of a beta phase at the moment, which is like a whole new ballgame, whole new software. But the Companion ones that we're playing with is mainly Companion. So this is the the server version. This is the one that's going to run everything. But if you want to run it, if you want to access Companion remotely, then you can go Companion Satellite, which is version 1.10.1 at this point in time. I've got that one installed here in my applications folder. And so now this is the way that I'm running my, I was going to call them local stream decks, but I'm running my desk here remotely rather than locally. And it's using Companion Satellite to speak back to Companion, but there's a ton more satellite things that are plugging into this, including our little friend ScreenDeck, as you'll see here. This is basically a version of Companion Satellite. Same thing with Elgato Bitfocus. Sorry, not Elgato Bitfocus. Elgato's ScreenDeck software now has the capacity to speak to an IP address. So this is getting very network-based, so it doesn't have to be on the one computer. It can be a different computer speaking back to a server that is running. That's what ScreenDeck is doing, and that's what Companion Satellite is doing. You'll notice up here I have this running, and we can configure. So again, I've set my address, which is my computer is .82 on this network. The port I just kept the same, and that was about it. I just set the address. That's really all we have to do with Companion Satellite is turn on, get the address right that you want to connect to. So this is my M4 Mac Mini, and then you just in Companion, I can find the right window here, under Surfaces. This is where they will all show up. So these ones here are the devices running on my computer. So you can see this .7.16 is my laptop that is sort of plugged into this, plugged into my desktop. I run my laptop as a desktop at this desk, is what I'm saying. And so we've got the ScreenDeck XL, ScreenDeck XL1, I'm going to call it because I've got several of them. There's the pedal, which shows up. And then there's the ScreenDeck. So we can name them just so we can keep track of them because there becomes a lot of them. And like I showed before, we can go into the settings. That's the ScreenDeck one, the pedal. Again, there's no remote control down here for the pedal. And then there's the ScreenDeck here. So I could sort of offset this of wherever I want to point it to. So this is really neat for me because it means that I don't have to think about USB connections on my desk. So I basically have my, the ScreenDeck plugged in USB into here, there's a little port under here, and then sitting under the computer is a little shelf with my laptop in clamshell mode. So my laptop's here, and then I have keyboard, mouse, trackpad, and my monitors. And so this can be my remote desk, and that could be hundreds of feet away from my server, like my Companion server, which is this one, which is going to be rebuilt at some point. This is the rack that's sitting in the other, well, it's not the other end of the room. It's actually pretty close. I can put my hand in here, pretending like I've got a computer server closet, which I don't. Okay, so that is my desk. Let me come back to my desk here. So that's how I'm controlling just the ScreenDeck these days, is via ScreenDeck Satellite, and the pedal is also satellite. And there's a few other things that we have. I'll start with the iPad and the iPhone. Again, it's really so I've got my iPhone here, which if we come into here, again, I've got my sort of software here, which I can control things via a web page. So just remember that this is a web browser, right? So whether that's in the computer that I was showing before, or whether this is on an iPhone, The neat thing about the iPhone is that you can walk around a venue with it. So a simple way of doing it is just the horizontal layout so that it matches kind of maybe what you've built on the hardware version of it. But you can also go to, I'm trying to think if I've got this on, you can basically build it vertically by going to, let's go to my computer here. No, let's go to SuperSource. Then you can see what I'm doing. We are going to my, so I've created an emulator here. I've got one called iPad. I've got one called iPhone. And under settings, you can see the page that it's set to and the, the settings for that. If I go to buttons, I think I have, did I have iPhone mini? I think that was right. Yeah. Okay, so like, for example, page 63 is, a vertical one that I had set up just so I could basically switch some things. Let me go switch. Okay, so this will be switching MP1 to camera 1 and 2 and M2. So this was something I built for a show where it was like a live event, and I wanted to be able to walk around the venue and direct. So I had my Holyland comms so I could speak to the crew, and then I had my phone that I could basically switch the in-house feed off the phone. But obviously at the moment this is quite small, so we're going to make this bigger. So page 63, if I go back to surfaces, this particular iPhone emulator settings, the row count we can, so I'm going to set it to 63. So that's going to be, we're on the page now that lines up, that matches with that. And then I just want to reduce my row count. Oops, not my row count, my column count. There we go. So you see, as I reduce my column count, then it's getting, I'm clicking the wrong thing, like that. Okay, so now I have a phone, like a mini phone control surface that I can switch a show. So what am I on? Camera 2. I could switch to camera 1 if I want to switch, or I could switch back to camera 2. And then I was using this I had like a graphic in there, which is going to be totally the wrong graphic. But I could switch between sponsor slides and all that kind of stuff. And then I could also had VLC here, so I was playing a loop of sponsors and also the video that I was playing for the venue. So very quickly was just able to customize a little mini control panel. And then of course with Safari, particularly on the iPhone, if you go to the export button, you can scroll down to add to home screen. And I'll just call this DJF or something like that. Done. And now we have a little icon here where I could drag that around my home screen. And anytime I want to load up that page, I could basically just click. And then now I have this full screen thing to switch as needed. So iPhones, don't underestimate the little guy, because sometimes that just makes it so much easier getting around a venue. I do the same thing with my iPad. So again, just emulator page. I do give it a different emulator so that I could separate it out. So remember we had an emulator for the iPhone, and so that can arrange that the way that I want it to. It also means it's a separate surface. So as I'm flicking through these pages here, nothing's changing on this other version of it. So for the iPad, I now have like a full matching control of the show. So if I wanted to control wirelessly and walk around, I've got the iPad version of that. And what's handy is it also gives things like comments, and we can sort of chat to people. Like Competition Karting, Ohio, USA. Great to have you here. And Michael from snowy Germany. And so just a bit of diversity of being able to control Companion and then also bring in other things like what I've got here with H2R graphics. All right, I'm gonna put this one back down. That was the iPhone. And so they're all the emulators. And I've sort of been going in and out of Companion Satellite. Let's see what else I've got here. We talked about ScreenDeck, which is basically Companion Satellite running from the computer back to the server. And then we can also talk about ScreenDeck Studio, which is the newest sort of hardware from Elgato that is out here. I'm playing with sort of ways to mount it on the desk yet. Haven't quite figured that out. It does have 2 M4s screws, so I've got a cheese plate here, and I'm just trying to figure out a way to sort of, I'm thinking under the computer screen would be nice, but I haven't figured out how to like get it solidly in there without, I mean, I've also tried sticking it to the screen, but because of the curvature of the screen, it's a little difficult. So maybe there's an Etsy job out there that would control this one. But you'll notice with the ScreenDeck, if my camera will focus, come on, Canon. I've noticed these Canon cameras getting, I don't know if they're just getting older, but I feel like the focusing is getting a little more sluggish. But I've basically got one Ethernet cable, which is PoE plus, and that's going into the rack. And so when you think about this workstation here, it doesn't actually need a computer. So if you're running a surface like this ScreenDeck Studio, then I've got one Ethernet cable, which is going, you know, you can go hundreds of feet. And if you're setting up different workstations, you don't have to have a computer running to be able to plug in a smaller ScreenDeck like this. So that's really handy, and also means you can, you know, put it in a rack and it can sort of move around, be very versatile. When we come to the setup of that, it will show up in either in Discover. So the Discover tab here is where all of the the satellite services show up and sort of become announced. So ScreenDeck Studio, I think I've already added that one, and then that will show up in remote surfaces here, and it's got its own IP address. So whereas my Mac that you're looking at here is 16 on the network, and my server is 82. This one's has its own IP address as .92, and then under configured surfaces, it shows up here. I've actually added it into a group. I've got another surface which is offline at the moment. So the one that's online is the .92. And again, you can go through and do the horizontal offset or vertical offset, brightness, all that kind of stuff in here. And then you've also got NFC tag reading, which is fun, and we'll get to that in a second. Things to note with the ScreenDeck Studio is it's going to be bigger. So if you, by default, Companion is going to go to button 00, which is this one here, but you're going to have to add another button here if you want to get the rotary. Bring this one in. Too many things going on. So this rotary is sitting sort of up here, which is going to be this button here. And then on the other side, all the way over here, is going to be the other rotary. And so I've got that, so we can, with a few commands here, I can actually sort of scroll through the different menus that we've got. That is basically, these buttons are rotating, so making it clicking this rotary actions when you make a button. And so I've turned it on as a rotary, which enables rotate left and right. And then I'm using surface decrement page number or increment page number for left and right rotations. And when I get to the end of somewhere, I would normally just, so like you can copy this button and go to the next one and just paste it on each page that you want to be able to rotate through the surfaces. But when you get to the end of that, see, like I don't have any past here with this hyperdeck page. you probably want to turn off the left decrement, or on the right side, the right increment, just so that once you get to the end of it, you'll get to you can then go back and you've got a hard stop, rather than, otherwise you'll roll onto a page that doesn't have that button pasted in there, and unless you've put it on all 100 pages, and you'll get stuck and have to come into the settings. So just, that's a nice little way of controlling this. So in my menu here, I can just sort of, flip through that. Obviously there's, broader ways of using that, and the button software that is coming has a lot more ways of integrating that across all of the buttons and the rotaries combined. So that's the ScreenDeck Studio, and that's how you would connect it. I think just the last note here, which I won't go into in terms of showing you how to do it, but just to make mention of, is that because this is a network environment, once you have Companion running on your local network, so I have a router in my studio and Companion is running on a computer within that network. If I can VPN into this network, then I can basically control this anywhere in the world. And as I mentioned before, I'm able to do this from home. So in my studio, I have a Ubiquiti router. I have really liked Ubiquiti's routers because the teleport feature, the VPN feature, is super simple to set up. And for me, the learning factor of going out and learning other routers' VPN process was just like not worth it. Like the cost of the Ubiquiti router paid itself off in like the first day of it just worked. So if you're not like a networking genius and you want an easy way of setting up a VPN so that you can control your studio from anywhere in the world, then I would recommend Ubiquiti's routers are a great way to go. There's a bunch that are coming out that are new. I'll look at some UI.com. They've got a bunch of new products. If we go to the store and cloud gateways. So when you're setting up a studio, you're probably spending a lot of time on switches and like all of the connections that are happening in a rack and in the studio. And then the layer above that is the gateway or the router. If you want, you can go like really big, like a 1U Dream Machine Pro Max, which is going to have a bunch of PoE out, and it's got some hard drives for storing camera footage and that kind of stuff. So that's one way of doing it, which is a bit bigger and heavier. The router that I'm running at the moment, which seems to be out of stock, but is amazing value for money, is just this $200 Dream router. Really neat because it has just a lot of features in it. I'm trying to see if I can get a back view of it. Where is it? Build features. Here we go. So rather than having to put together all the different bits and pieces, this particular router is a great place to start. Very simple figure 8 power input. It's got a WAN port for getting your internet into it. It's got 4 ports out, 2 of which are PoE, so it means that you could run a switch externally without having to power it. It's got a micro SD expansion slot, so I've got I think like a 512 gig micro SD card in there, very cheap, and then I've got a camera in the studio, so like a security camera for $100. Again, very easy to set up, and it just means I can get a bird's eye view of what's happening in the studio, keep an eye on it, troubleshoot things that way. And then the top of this is got Wi-Fi in it, so rather than having to go buy a whole new AP point and put that somewhere around the place, it's all one unit. What I don't like about this is the form factor being, this egg shape is probably best for sitting on a shelf somewhere in a home and looking, really cute. For me, I've sort of zip tied it up the back and just kind of, it's a weird mounting, but I've just got it like up the back out of the way. And I really want something that would go into a rack more, which is where, if we go back to here, there's some newer options that are again, neat and powerful, but maybe need a little bit more padding around it. The one I was looking at was this Cloud Gateway Max. This is a 2.5 gig network. So it's got basically keeps on moving. Here we go. 4 ports. So you've got your WAN port. It's powered off USB-C, which always feels a little weird when you're running like something very important on USB-C, but you know, that seems to be the way it's going. And then it's got 4 network ports, but these aren't PoE. There's no PoE in there, so you would need a switch with PoE to run other devices. And it has a what do you call it? NVMe storage in there. So that's 512 gig, or if you go up to 2 terabyte, it becomes closer to $500 if you're wanting to have camera storage in there. But you can run all of the UniFi apps in there, and it's just, I guess, a smaller way of something that would fit into a rack and be portable is why I would get this one. But it does mean then you'd have to go get a access point. You know, I was wondering about some of these smaller ones might fit in a rack and then can be moved out to be more accessible. And you're going to need switches. So there's a lot more parts that you have putting that kind of thing together than just getting something like the Dream router. But it's pretty neat package for what it is what I would recommend. All right, we'll wrap up here in a sec. Michael says, can you not put it on a low arm audio mount? I guess I could. Yeah, I just want it out of the way. So I assume you're talking about the ScreenDeck here. So again, I was just playing around with a NATO rail because I also want to be able to move it elsewhere or do demos or something like that. So I've got this cheese plate here. If you want to know the one, drop it in the comments and I can put a link. But these M4 screws are holding that down, and that gives me a whole bunch of quarter 20 screws, and I've got a NATO rail. So I'm trying to figure out if it would fit under the monitor. I guess I could on the underside do a similar sort of mounting thing and have a little, but I feel like that takes up too much space. And for a desktop item, I really want something sitting flat. So I want like a larger version of the ScreenDeck XL with more buttons and some rotaries and PoE networking in. So basically the companion satellite version of that. You know, if it was that kind of, you know, 2 of these devices and some rotaries would be a really neat desktop surface. This is definitely built for more like rack mounts and stuff. So I'm still playing around with that, but haven't. It is actually quite heavy. Like it's solid metal, so it's not like these ScreenDecks are. Well, there's a bit of weight in there too, I guess, but much heavier. My camera is out of focus again. Martin, did you say Canon's PTZ's focus is getting sluggish? Interesting. Does the camera's focusing ability get worse with age? I mean, these are the first, I think they're the first PTZ cameras that Canon has made. Maybe there was ones ages ago, but I think of these CRN models or whatever, these are the first ones. So the 300 that I've got and the 500 were earlier models, and then the 700 and the 100 were more recent models. Yeah, I don't know if, I mean, I'll probably have to double check that I'm not, you know, saving some settings and like saving in a manual focus when I'm not, but it should be, it is on autofocus right now. Like if I go to here, like I don't know what it's looking for. You know, is it looking for a face, something? So, because I feel like it focuses to my eye or something, and then if I move away, it should, I don't know. You know, it's zoom in, let me go fast. Zoop. yeah, sort of, there you go, that's searching. There's enough light here and, you know, edges that I feel like it shouldn't have a problem focusing, but I don't know. I mean, it's basically, this one is, that's the focusing there. Let me hide this one. Where are we? There we go. Yeah, I'm not, it's mounted in the ceiling. It's not sort of getting beat up on the road all the time. So, but this overhead one, I've noticed it's struggling a little more finding the focus. So I'm not sure exactly why. I feel like the front one seems okay. And then I have had times where for some reason it was turning on auto track automatically when I'd reboot it. But I think I've gotten out of that. Where are we? Have you enabled Canon's PTZ auto follow so it looks at your face all the time? I don't think so. It should show me on here if it's got auto track on. Let me see if I've got. It's been a while since I've opened this up. Let me see if I go other functions. Where is it? Scene, going to this one. There we go. Other functions, color bars, add-ons, auto tracking, open. It's off, yeah. So that should be, if I turn it on, it'll go back to whatever the home position is that it's searching for. And then if I hit PTZ 2 and come back to close up, it'll go back to the preset that I hit. This is the tracking button that's highlighted here. But I think if it's got the auto lost, oh no, it's gonna do nothing. Yeah, oh, loss recovery on. So I can turn that off so it won't do anything. So this is my auto tracking on and off. And so I can keep track of that with it highlighted down here because it is something where if it is on and you're not aware of it, then your camera can suddenly pull away and it'll try and find that first position. I don't think it's that. I don't know. Maybe it's just getting old. I'm not sure. Like we all are. What else? Any more? Okay, the buttons. ScreenDeck, you can rotate the buttons, I think, and then you can fold the Elgato arm away when not needed. I guess you're saying the like a Elgato mount. So you're talking about Elgato arm. Let me go back to here. This kind of thing. I think it's something like this, right? That kind of thing. Yeah, I think for my purposes, it's like I'm trying to clear out this desk as much as possible. Like I really want to get rid of the audio mixer that is sitting over here. I want that gone. I want everything gone. You know, maybe one day I'll just have an iPad that sits here. I've thought about getting a smaller keyboard. I mean, I like this for editing, but for live streaming, it would be nice to have just like a smaller keyboard and an iPad and be kind of done with that. You know, or we go back to the clicker. Just go back to the little run the whole stream off one button. But I wonder if that'll work. No, that one's not going to work. But we can hit goodbye. So hopefully that gave you an idea of all of the different ways that you can control Companion. As I said, when the years go on, there's more and more ways from your phone to your iPad to ScreenDeck services to remotely, locally, any way you can think of, you can find a way to control Companion. Didn't even mention triggers, which are just like automated in the background, happen for you, you know. Until next week, take care and I'll see you then.